The waves crashed against the shore in their ancient rhythm, just as they had for the 100 years the Morgan family had owned Tidewater Resort. I stood on the weathered deck of the main lodge, watching the sunset paint the Pacific in shades of gold and crimson, knowing it might be the last time I saw this view as the owner. My name is Emma Morgan, and at 31, I was about to lose everything my great-grandfather had built. The developers were coming tomorrow with their final offer. An offer I couldn't refuse no matter how much I wanted to. Miss Emma? Maria's voice came from behind me. She'd been our head housekeeper for 20 years, and her face showed the same worry I felt. They're here early. The men from Coastal Development. They're in the lobby. Of course they were. Bradley Matthews and his team of corporate raiders never waited for anything, especially when they smelled blood in the water. I straightened my shoulders and headed inside, my bare feet silent on the polished hardwood floors my grandfather had installed 50 years ago. The lobby of Tidewater Resort wasn't glamorous by modern standards. No marble floors or crystal chandeliers. Just warm wood, comfortable furniture, and massive windows that brought the ocean view inside. Generations of families had made memories here, back when the Oregon coast was still wild and undeveloped. Ah, Miss Morgan. Bradley Matthews rose from one of our overstuffed chairs, his designer suit out of place among the rustic charm. Beautiful evening for finalizing our deal. I didn't offer to shake his hand. The meeting's scheduled for tomorrow, Mr. Matthews. Yes, well, he smiled like a shark. We thought we'd get an early start. Save everyone some time. He gestured to the leather briefcase his assistant held. $2 million as discussed. More than generous for a failing resort on 10 acres of beachfront. The number hit me like a physical blow. $2 million. A fortune to some, perhaps, but a fraction of what the property was worth. But with the tax bill coming due and the repairs needed after last winter's storms, I had no choice. The papers. I managed to keep my voice steady. Bradley's assistant, Kevin or Keith or something, laid out the documents on the antique reception desk. The same desk where my great-grandmother had welcomed their first guests in 1923. Everything's in order, Bradley said smoothly. Just sign where indicated and we can all move forward. You'll want to start packing, of course. We begin demolition tomorrow. Tomorrow. I looked up sharply. The agreement says I have 30 days to. Change of plans, he cut me off. The construction schedule's been moved up. Don't worry, we'll handle all the guest cancellations. Though from your books there aren't many to handle. He wasn't wrong. The past few years had been hard. Modern tourists wanted luxury spas and trendy restaurants, not historic charm and private beaches. Still, we'd been managing until the storm damage and the tax reassessment hit at once. The staff needs time too. We'll be generously compensated, Bradley interrupted again. 2 weeks severance for everyone. Now shall we proceed? I looked around the lobby at the photos on the walls showing 4 generations of my family building and maintaining this place. At Maria hovering anxiously in the doorway. At the guest book filled with decades of memories. Could I have a moment? I asked quietly. To read through everything? Bradley checked his Rolex. 5 minutes. We have dinner reservations in Newport. I took the papers to my office, soon to be my former office. The room was exactly as my father had left it before his final fishing trip 3 years ago. His ancient navigation maps still hung on the walls, the corners curled with age and salt air. Sinking into his old leather chair, I began to read. The sale documents were straightforward enough, but something caught my eye. A clause about mineral and resource rights buried in the fine print. Why would they care about mineral rights on a beach resort? My eyes drifted to Dad's maps on the wall. He'd been obsessed with the history of this coast, with the stories of shipwrecks and hidden coves. He used to tell me that Tidewater held secrets even he hadn't discovered. A memory surfaced. Dad excited about something he'd found in the old records just before his accident. He'd been researching the original land grant, talking about historical surveys and geological studies. Miss Morgan. Bradley's voice carried down the hall. Time's up. I stood slowly, a plan forming. Maybe there was nothing to Dad's research. Maybe I was grasping at straws. But something about that mineral rights clause set off alarm bells. One more thing, I said, returning to the lobby. I need to remove some personal items from the boathouse before tomorrow. Family heirlooms. Bradley waved dismissively. Fine. Just be done by morning. The demolition crew starts at 8. I signed the papers with my grandfather's old fountain pen, watching Bradley's smile widen with each signature. Within 15 minutes they were gone, leaving only the check and the echo of Bradley's parting words. Don't forget to be out by morning. Anything left behind becomes coastal development property. Maria was crying quietly in the doorway. Miss Emma, what will we do? Pack up anything you want to keep, I told her. Then meet me at the boathouse in an hour. Maria? Call Tom and Susan too. Tom was our maintenance manager and his wife Susan had run our small gift shop for a decade. They were more than employees. They were family. The boathouse. Maria looked confused. But it's been locked since your father. Exactly, I said, already heading for the stairs to my private quarters. It's time we found out what Dad discovered before his accident. In my bedroom I went straight to the old sea chest that had belonged to my great-grandfather. Inside, beneath photos and logbooks, I found what I was looking for, a key ring with a brass tag marked simply Beach. The sun had set by the time I reached the boathouse, its weathered frame silhouetted against the darkening sky. Tom, Susan, and Maria were waiting, looking worried and confused. Miss Emma, Tom stepped forward. What's going on? Maria said you sold to those developers. I did, I admitted, fitting the key into the rusted lock. But before they tear this place apart, we need to check something. The lock turned with a grinding sound and the door creaked open. The smell of salt and old wood washed over us as I found the light switch. Dust motes danced in the dim light, swirling around old fishing gear and stacked crates. Help me look, I said, moving toward Dad's old workbench. Anything with maps, surveys, geological reports. Dad found something before his accident. Something important enough that he spent weeks researching it. We searched for almost an hour, moving boxes and clearing cobwebs. Finally, Susan called out from a corner. Is this it? She held up a thick manila envelope, water-stained and marked with Dad's handwriting. Land Grant Original Survey 1923. Inside we found surveys, reports, and something else. A letter from my great-grandfather to my grandfather dated 1947. Son, the war's over and it's time you knew the truth about Tidewater. When I bought this land in 23, it wasn't just for the view. The geological survey showed something in the seabed. Something valuable. But mining it would destroy everything we've built here. I'm trusting you to keep this secret, to protect this place until the right time comes. The original survey and proof are in the hidden compartment behind the third shelf. Remember, sometimes the real treasure isn't what's under the sand, but what's worth protecting above it. My hands shook as I read the letter aloud. Tom was already moving to the shelf unit, his flashlight beam searching. Here, he called. There's a seam. The hidden compartment contained a metal tube, sealed against the decades. Inside were more documents. The original geological survey, correspondence with mining companies, and detailed maps of what lay beneath our beautiful beach. As I read, my heart began to race. If this was accurate, if what Dad had rediscovered was real. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Morgan forgot to mention our crew will start with the boathouse at first light. Best clear out tonight. BM. I looked at the documents in my hands, then at the worried faces of my makeshift family. Tom, I said, how quickly can you get your brother's boat here? An hour, maybe less. He's just down in Newport. But why? Because we need to verify something before those bulldozers arrive. I held up one of the maps. And we need to do it tonight. Maria crossed herself. Miss Emma, what did your father find? I smiled, thinking about Bradley Matthews and his hidden mineral rights clause. Something that's going to make those developers wish they'd never heard of Tidewater Resort. The night sea was black as ink, broken only by the beam of Tom's brother Mike's spotlight as we headed out from the small dock. The documents from the boathouse were spread out on the cabin table, illuminated by a battery lantern. According to these coordinates, Mike said, checking his modern GPS against my great-grandfather's ancient surveys, whatever we're looking for should be right about here. I watched the depth finder's display, comparing it to the markings on the old maps. We were in the right place, just offshore from Tidewater's private beach, in waters my family had known intimately for 4 generations. Drop the sonar, I instructed. Mike had brought his newest equipment, designed for finding fish but capable of much more. Let's see what's really down there. The image that formed on the screen made us all gasp. By God, Tom whispered. Your father was right. No wonder those developers had that mineral rights clause, Susan added, staring at the display. But how did they know? They must have done their own surveys, I said grimly. Probably right after Dad's accident. When he stopped coming to the meetings about selling, when he started researching the old records. I left the thought unfinished. Dad's fishing accident 3 years ago had always seemed suspicious. He'd been an experienced sailor, had known these waters better than anyone. And he'd been so excited about something he'd discovered, something he'd wanted to show me. We need samples, I decided. Mike, can we? Already on it. He was lowering a collection device into the dark waters. But Emma, if this is what we think it is, those developers will be here in less than 6 hours, I finished. With bulldozers. The next few hours were a blur of activity. While Mike collected samples, I made calls to my father's old lawyer, to the state environmental office, to a geology professor at Oregon State who owed Dad a favor. By the time we returned to shore, a plan was forming. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten when we heard the rumble of heavy equipment coming down the resort's drive. Right on schedule, I muttered, watching Bradley Matthews's Mercedes pull in behind the bulldozers. He emerged looking irritated to find us all standing in front of the boathouse. Ms. Morgan, he called out, striding over. I believe we discussed this. Anything left on the property after the sale belongs to Coastal Development, I finished. Yes, I remember. Tell me, Mr. Matthews, did you really think no one would notice that mineral rights clause in the contract? He faltered for just a moment before his smooth smile returned. Standard language in all our contracts. Now if you'll excuse us. Actually, a new voice cut in, no one's excusing anyone. My father's old lawyer, Howard Bennett, walked up from where he'd parked down the beach. Behind him came Dr. Patricia Chen from Oregon State and 2 people in official-looking windbreakers marked Environmental Protection Agency. What is this? Bradley demanded. This, I said, holding up the samples we'd collected, is evidence that you knew about the rare earth mineral deposits in our seabed. Deposits worth considerably more than the $2 million you paid for this property. Bradley's face darkened. You signed the contract. The sale is complete. About that, Howard stepped forward. The sale was predicated on fraudulent representation. You knew about these deposits and deliberately concealed their value during negotiations. Furthermore, Dr. Chen added, any mining of these minerals would catastrophically damage a unique marine ecosystem. One that, as of 2 hours ago, is under emergency protection order from the EPA. I watched the blood drain from Bradley's face as he finally understood. The mineral deposits he'd hoped to quietly acquire along with the resort were now untouchable. The property he'd bought for $2 million would be worth far less without mining rights, and the legal battles ahead would cost far more. You can't do this, he sputtered. Actually, one of the EPA officers spoke up. We have satellite evidence of unauthorized preliminary drilling in these waters 3 years ago. She consulted her tablet. Right around the time Thomas Morgan reported finding suspicious activity before his unfortunate accident. Bradley's face went from pale to ashen. That's not. Let me make this simple, I said quietly. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to void the sale contract, return my property and walk away. In exchange, we won't pursue questions about those drilling operations or my father's accident. Or, Howard added pleasantly, we can let the FBI investigate while we tie this property up in environmental litigation for the next decade. Your choice. The sun was fully up by the time all the papers were signed. New papers, voiding the sale and returning Tidewater Resort to Morgan family ownership. I watched the bulldozers and Bradley's Mercedes retreat down the drive, taking their dreams of mineral wealth with them. Your father would be proud, Howard said, squeezing my shoulder. He suspected something like this when he started looking into those old records. That's why he began documenting everything. I just wish. I stopped, emotion threatening to overwhelm me. I wish he was here to see this. He is, Maria said softly. In every wave, every sunset, every guest who makes memories here. That's what he was really protecting. He was right. The minerals beneath our beach were valuable, but they weren't the real treasure. The real treasure was what my great-grandfather had built, what every generation of Morgans had protected. A place where families could connect with the ocean, with nature and with each other. The next few months brought changes to Tidewater Resort, but not the kind Bradley Matthews had planned. The EPA protection meant our waters were now a marine sanctuary, attracting scientists and eco-tourists. Dr. Chen helped us develop educational programs about marine ecosystems and coastal geology. We renovated but carefully, maintaining the historic charm while adding modern comforts. The old boathouse became a marine education center, dedicated to my father's memory. And in a twist of irony, the publicity from our battle with coastal development brought a new wave of guests who appreciated our commitment to preservation over profit. 1 year later, I stood on the same deck where this story began, watching another sunset paint the Pacific. The resort was full, our waiting list was long, and the waves still crashed in their ancient rhythm against our protected shore. Maria appeared at my side just as she had that fateful evening. "Miss Emma? The new guests are arriving. The Thompson family, they've been coming here since 1960. I smiled, thinking about all the families who had made memories here, and all those who would continue to do so. "Tell them welcome home, Maria." As I walked inside, I passed the framed letter from my great-grandfather, the one we'd found in the boathouse that night. Its final lines had become our new motto, engraved on a plaque in the lobby. "Sometimes the real treasure isn't what's under the sand, but what's worth protecting above it." The minerals remained safely beneath our waters, protected by law and by choice. They were valuable, yes, but not as valuable as this place, these memories, this legacy. Bradley Matthews and his developers had seen only the potential profit buried in our seabed. They'd missed the real treasure, the one that had been here all along in plain sight. Tidewater Resort continued to stand, a testament to 4 generations of Morgans who understood that some things are worth more than money. The waves still crashed, the gulls still called, and families still gathered to make memories on our unspoiled beach. And every sunset I thought about my father, imagining him smiling as he watched over his beloved resort, now protected for generations to come.